What the Tech is sponsored by Audible.com, the internet's leading provider of audiobooks, with more than 100,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature. For a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/Andrew. Shutterstock.com, with more than 20 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips. For 30% off new accounts, go to Shutterstock.com and use offer code WhatTheTech5. And by Carbonite Online Backup, automatic, continual, and unlimited backups for your computer. Try it for free at Carbonite.com and use offer code WhatTheTech and get 2 bonus months with purchase.
What the Tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. Of course, I'm joined by Paul, the Blue Tharot. How you doing, Paul?
How you doing?
Everything was so blue today at the start of the show.
Know. Now I'm less blue.
I think it's a theme. I think it's a sign. Do you think it has to do with Microsoft discussing blue and acknowledging it?
I'm so excited when they acknowledge things.
Things that have been existing for a while.
Hey, whatever. They're so secretive over there.
It's almost like the New York City, I guess, Department of Transportation, where there'll be a giant pothole, and they'll get about 5,000 complaints to 311 about this giant pothole, and they'll totally ignore it until one day be like, yeah, you're right, there's a pothole there. Let's just fill it up. 8 months later. Nice. This is the show where we discuss things that we want to talk about in tech. We don't necessarily discuss tech news. We sometimes will talk about World War II. We'll switch it up. Next week, we're going to be discussing proper bronzer to use while doing a web series. I think it's a very important thing that people need to learn.
Okay.
I'm an expert on this, and Paul, I know, is a total expert on bronzer and which ones to use. So next week, we're going to save that for next week. But I do want to start the show off with discussing, just going into Windows 8.1 and the acknowledgement that we got this week of Windows 8.1.
Yeah.
Still, it's up in the air, and I don't know if it's been confirmed or not, but a lot of websites are reporting that there's going to be a fee to upgrade to 8.1.
Well, that's not necessarily accurate. So, okay. I think it's because of the wording. So what happened was they sent Tammy Reller out, and she talked to a bunch of people, including Mary Jo Foley, and she provided a lot of the same kind of language to them, you know. She had said something like, she talked about the timing, and she said that there'll be 2 disclosures coming in the next few weeks, similar to what they're doing with the Xbox. In fact, maybe exactly like what they're doing with the Xbox. That's one of my private theories, that the Xbox reveal will in fact be the next time they talk about Windows 8, because the Xbox is Windows 8. But what they said was that, let's see, I can't find her oh yeah, she said, the first thing they're going to detail next will be details about pricing, packaging, and the official name. And so when you see pricing, of course, you immediately think, well, you know, they're going to charge for it. From sort of a theory standpoint, I believe that they will not charge existing Windows 8 users. That doesn't make any sense. But of course, this will replace Windows 8 in stores and on new PCs, and
which you would have to pay for. I mean.
Yeah, but that's also interesting because it further suggests, you know, why would they even mention that? So in other words, if Blue was just going to replace Windows 8 in retail stores, you know, you don't really have to mention pricing. The assumption is that pricing is going to be the same. But because they did mention pricing, I actually think pricing is going to be different. And I believe that, and again, this is completely unsubstantiated opinion, but I wouldn't be surprised if this fall that they did what they did last fall, and this time make Windows 8.1 available to all existing Windows users for a super low upgrade price, and get another wave of people to upgrade. You know,
I think that's phenomenal. I think that's exactly what they have to do. If it happens, and I think they should do that every year with these upgrade cycles. You know, which hopefully, I mean, we're assuming they're going to go to a yearly upgrade cycle, but every year.
So by the way, though, the other end of the spectrum from this is they make everyone pay for it, and that would be horrible. That would be a horrible mistake.
But Apple does it.
Microsoft's not Apple. I'm not sure if you've noticed this.
No, I've never. I see them as
they
one
really
giant
can't.
company.
They really can't do things the same way. Apple charges you a little bit for something, and it's a celebration. And Microsoft charges you,
let me.
it's a disaster.
Yeah, so let's go into that because Apple charges you $30 every year to upgrade to the latest OS version. Microsoft.
Hold on. Yeah. But where do they do that? I mean, you're talking about the Mac.
With the Mac, yeah.
They never charge for iOS upgrades.
No.
Arguably, the thing that unless something changes that we haven't seen yet, the changes that they're talking about are changes to a mobile operating system that has a lot more to do with iOS than it does to Mac OS 10. So, the desktop stuff isn't really changing per se.
But are these changes
actually, that's not totally fair. There's going to be a few changes. But, most of the changes are coming to that mobile OS. I can't think of a single reason or time or scenario where charging people who bought Windows 8 or Windows 8 PCs an upgrade fee makes any sense at all. It just doesn't make any sense. They have to do what Apple does with iOS, not what Apple does with OS 10.
Are these changes also going to be implemented in RT?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's the same thing across the board. I mean, okay. I don't know. I don't see them. Do you see it as a comparable situation between iOS and Windows 8?
It's, there's no direct comparison because Windows 8 is OS 10 plus iOS. So Windows 8 is one system that does both. Other than on the phone, obviously, when they have a slightly different system they call Windows Phone. But, Windows 8 and RT run on tablets, they run on real PCs, and then they run on these kind of new crazy hybrid computers that are kind of in the middle. So I just don't. They ship something that was patently incomplete.
Yeah.
Charging people to fix that would be insulting. I mean, there's just no way that they can justify doing that.
I could see that argument for this version of the upgrade, but how about 8.2 and 8.3?
Yeah.
Is that going to be the thing where people are going to say, well, they shouldn't be charging us because you're right. People praise Apple for charging you $29.99 to get OS 10 every year when it comes out. But Microsoft, if Microsoft doesn't, and let's talk about desktop only. Let's totally eliminate mobile.
But let's step through this because Microsoft has, on the one hand, an Office product that is served up in two different ways. You can actually buy it like you used to be able to buy it. You could buy one copy. It works on one computer, and it comes with no promises of functional updates whatsoever. They're going to obviously have security updates, and they'll have other updates that they give to everybody. But by and large, that old-fashioned version of Office, which, again, you can still buy, doesn't come with regular updates. The other option is you can buy an Office 365 subscription, and then you're paying once a year or once a month, however you choose to do it, and you get ongoing updates. And they've actually spaced out a schedule where they said, look, at least once every quarter, we're going to have functional updates to this thing. You're always going to be updated. And 3 years down the road, maybe the Office 2018 or what, I can't do math, 2016 or whatever comes out.
2048, Paul.
Whatever it is. And you get that. And so on the Windows side, we don't have a subscription offering yet, do we? Clearly we're going to.
It's almost like a lease,
Yeah. Well, we don't know what that's going to look like. So as of today, we still buy Windows the old-fashioned way. What's changed is that we have options for, installing it over the web and doing that kind of web services type stuff. So it's understandable that this first version at least would be free because, like I said, Windows 8 was woefully incomplete. As we move forward, it gets a little less obvious, 8.2, 8.3 or whatever they call them. Will those things be free? I mean, by that point, I suspect that they're going to have two models. They are going to have a pure subscription model, and I would love to see them do like a 5 PC license thing like they're doing with Office. That would be incredible. But let's not expect too much of the Windows guys. But I think they're going to have two offerings. I think they'll have that, and they'll have the old-fashioned way, which is the way we have it today. And if you do that, and you already have Windows 8.1 at the time or whatever, and 8.2 comes out and you want to buy it, then we fall back on the OS 10 model, where the charge is what, $19.99 or $29.99 or whatever it is.
Hey, by the way, I don't know if you saw, but Microsoft just announced 8.1. It will be a public preview, and it'll be released at Build
In June, yeah.
Yep. Okay.
That was... Yes, they did reveal.
I'm sorry, it was so 32 minutes ago, Paul.
No, I mean, I already knew that was happening, but yes, they did. Yeah, you're right. Yep.
I'm really curious on how they're going to do this, and I at first was really against there being one unified OS for mobile and for desktop. But if you look at the long-term plan is not there to be a traditional laptop and traditional desktop. The long-term plan is this future hybrid device that will probably take over the market in 10 years.
I'm not sure. So you can beat these kind of comparisons to death. I don't want to go overboard with this. But the car truck thing I think is always very helpful. And if you look at the car market today, you know that there are an amazingly diverse range of vehicles, 2-doors, 4-doors. There are trucks, there are SUVs, there are hybrids, there are all kinds of different vehicles. And, they all have, most of them have 4 wheels, most of them have a steering wheel and a dashboard. They're all operated fairly consistently. You could drive a Ferrari and it may be intimidating, but you get the gist of it, and so there's no reason, theoretically, that one OS couldn't serve different devices when we look at computers and tablets and other devices and so forth. I think the problem was just that they went so far to the tablet touch side with this version.
Well, they went to an extreme, which...
Yeah. And even, Tammy Reller, when she went around and talked to folks, one of the things that she said that I thought was very important was she talked about the desktop. And she said, we talked about the desktop as if it were an app. And I think I wrote something like this in Windows 8 Secrets, or certainly on my website at one point, where I basically said, look, the desktop isn't really an app, but the way that the OS treats it is like an app.
It's like an app,
like an app. It's not really an app. But she said, in reality for PC buyers, and I think she means traditional laptops and desktops, which aren't really going away. I think it's going to be a smaller market, but there's still going to be a fair number of that kind of thing going forward. The desktop is still very important. And that's an important admission for her to make, just like Julie Larson-Green admitted, our argument is that the start button is still kind of there. It's just hidden. And users said, we don't want it to be hidden. And okay, we hear you. And so hinting that, some form of a start button is going to make a comeback in this release as well. And so I think there's this compromise that can occur and is occurring, which is nice because, again, under the regime that created Windows 8, the original regime.
No compromises.
These compromises were not forthcoming.
I think they saw it as like a weakness where they're admitting that they screwed up here and that's why they're not doing this. Is the long-term plan and this is what we're sticking to. But now, you're right. They're listening to what their user base is saying, and I think enterprise is a huge deal for them. And Windows 8 is not. They're not going to be using Windows 8 obviously right now, but
that's
how about
what
in
makes
3
Windows
years?
8 amazing.
But how about in 3 years?
Because this is the future Windows. It doesn't matter what you call it, Windows 8.1, Windows 9, whatever. At some point, they're going to have to upgrade.
And that's what I keep telling people. I had this discussion with somebody. I was just talking to somebody about this. They have a business here in New York City. They have a pretty fairly large staff, and they have a whole IT department. And I was talking to him, and it's a family friend of mine, and I was saying, like, hey, are you planning on upgrading? I just want to know. He goes, oh, no, we're still running XP. Sure. We didn't want to do, they're running XP, and they're about 4 years old, these computers that are still running XP. So I don't know if you could opt at that point. Yeah, I guess you could have opted for XP, right? They're 4 years old?
It's right. It's still supported. I mean, that's the thing. Yes. I mean, it would be insane to do that now, but yeah.
And I said, well, are you planning on upgrading? He's like, well, not really now. The whole Windows 8 thing is scaring me. And I'm thinking, eventually he's going to have to upgrade to something. I mean, the day will come where they have to upgrade the entire system here. What are they going to do? Go to 7? I don't think so.
Well, okay. So people always talk about how you have these abilities to downgrade and so forth. And I guess one of the things that I think people don't really understand is that if you're a large enough business, you're basically already on a subscription plan that Microsoft calls software assurance.
Yeah.
And you're not licensing Windows 8, you're licensing Windows. And that license gives you the ability to, we call it downgrade, but basically choose whichever supported version of Windows that you want. So if you're on SA, if you're a volume license customer and a year goes by or 2 years goes by or whatever it is, you will have the chance to choose Windows 7 or Windows 8 at that point, right? I mean, or Windows whatever, whatever the version is we have. But if you're like a mom and pop small business, the options for doing that are actually fairly limited. They're still available, but they're not as easily obtainable. And so, if there are like enthusiasts out there in the world and so forth, I mean, there are probably going to be places where you can buy Windows 7 online, Amazon or whatever for some time, I guess. But, at some point that kind of stuff dries up, and people, especially small businesses who kind of sat out Windows 8 and thought that, well, we'll just see how this one goes. I'll run XP right now. Maybe in for a little bit of a shock when finding something other than Windows 8 point whatever is actually very difficult for them.
Yeah.
A couple of years down the road.
No, I mean, they're going to have to upgrade, and I'm wondering what that fallout is going to be like when all these computers are being upgraded and these people are using an operating system that they've never seen before.
Yep.
It's going to be like a whole different, well, technically, it's a whole different language. I don't know. I'm very curious on how they're going to do it. So, 8.1, it's going to come out. The preview is going to come out in June. Are we looking at the same, I guess, release cycle for how they did it last year? So like October, November?
Yeah, and probably sooner than that. They said, or Tammy Relish said that it would be ready for the fall. And I think the way she said it was ready for the fall and certainly for the holiday selling season. I would expect back to school would be an ideal time for this thing to hit. That machines that were being made available late in the summer.
I'm curious how they're going to market it, because 8.1 means nothing to an average person.
Right.
If you're going to a store and it says now with Windows 8.1, what does that mean to me?
Yeah.
So I'm curious if they're going to do this whole weird thing like, hey, the start menu's back. The start button's back. So,
again, this is just a theory, but Tammy Rella spoke about these 2 reveal events. One will be in the next couple of weeks, soon. The other one will be in June, which we now know is Build, because Julie Larson Green has said that. We already kind of knew that Build was the second one, but there's going to be a preview release, obviously, in June. But pricing, features, and some other stuff will be happening in a couple of weeks. This is just a theory, but the Xbox event that is occurring in actually about a week, right, or a couple of weeks, whenever that is, May 21st, 2 weeks from today, may be the reveal. Maybe that's when they do it, because again, Windows 8 is part of the Xbox. That would be very interesting to me. The Windows 8 release preview, I just looked this up, came out in May 2012, a year ago. And then, of course, that operating system didn't ship until October. So hopefully they can ship a preview in June and ship something before October.
When was the developer preview? Like December?
No, that was the October before. That was at
okay.
PDC 2011.
Okay.
And then I think the consumer preview off the top of my head was probably February 29th, if I'm not mistaken. That year was the leap year, 2012.
I'm excited for it. I get excited all the time for these announcements, and then it's like, yeah, it was all right.
Sure.
Like, I'm like, oh, we're getting something new. I want to take a little break. I want to continue this, and I want to talk about the 8-inch tablets that were leaked. I think Amazon leaked it, right?
Yep.
Somebody leaked it. I want to talk to you about that. I don't know how I feel about it, but we'll talk about it. But before we do that, I want to talk about Shutterstock. Shutterstock.com. I want to thank Shutterstock for advertising here. And what is Shutterstock? Well, if you're a web designer, you are a publication, you're an advertiser, or if you're looking to do any kind of video work, this is the place to go. You have over 20 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vector files, and video clips to choose from. We've used them a couple times for our openings here on the show. We've had to, modify some openings, and we just, rather than redoing the entire thing from scratch, we go to Shutterstock, we sign up, we use their service, makes it much easier for us when it comes to any kind of stuff like that. Many of the contributors to Shutterstock are professional photographers, so you're getting quality photos. Each of the photos are reviewed personally and individually, so you know that nothing is kind of falling through the cracks. And they're also adding 10,000 images per day. So there's something new there every single time you go there. Depending on, and they have a great algorithm for categorizing everything. So if you're looking for a specific thing, you know that you're not going to have to filter through a lot of the BS to kind of find it. They make it very, very easy for you. Here's a great deal. If you go to Shutterstock.com right now and you sign up for a new account, you'll get 30% off when you use offer code WhatTheTech5. That's WhatTheTech5, 5 for May. And support them. I think they're a great company. We use them all the time. I know somebody in our chat room, J Maverick Design, he has a web design company. and he uses them all the time. He actually sent me an email and he was telling me about it. So I wanted to give it a little shout out there. Shutterstock.com. I want to thank them for supporting the show. And remember to use offer code WhatTheTech5 at checkout and get 30% off a new account. So, Paul, I want to talk to you about these 8-inch tablets that we're going to be starting to see, I guess, anytime now.
Yep.
Images were leaked.
Well,
they're RT-based tablets, I'm assuming. You're not going to get...
No, they're Windows 8-based tablets, which I think is really interesting.
Okay.
One thing that I would say that came out in that leaked Amazon page, I'm not sure if I should give this away.
Ooh, okay. Let's think about it.
No, I don't want to take this one from Mary Jo. I don't know if she wants.
Sorry, we're going out for beer next week. I set it up online with her.
Anyway, so
yeah,
we're going to have 7/8-inch Windows 8 tablets.
Okay.
Coming from a variety of companies, including Microsoft, in the months ahead. I actually see these as more second half of the year. I don't actually think we're going to see any, like June, July. I think this is something tied to Windows 8.1. I think that these things are going to rely on some of the improvements in that release to make it a little bit more like RT in many ways.
I mean, somebody in our chat said, didn't the image say something about ARM?
It's not ARM. It's
is it the new one that I forgot the name of it? The new Intel chipset, or is it Haswell?
That's the thing. So it's actually it's a 1.5 gigahertz Atom processor. It doesn't say which generation it is. The current gen is like Clover Trail, I think, and the coming one I believe is called Bay Trail. Frankly, for that kind of a tablet, the current Clover Trail stuff is fine. I would think from a performance/battery life perspective, it is as good, if not better, than RT or ARM.
I think the new one, they're also releasing something called Silvermont.
I don't know what that is. This is an
Intel
chipset.
yeah, new Intel 22 nanometer system on a chip.
I think a lot of the Intel stuff is going to go system on a chip. I mean, one of the weird things that is happening now with Intel's chipset is you have these Ivory Bridge class processors that are very powerful and have a range of capabilities, but they don't have the power management stuff that you get in Clover Trail, which we sort of think of as a system on a chip type system. And I think those things need to bridge a bit. And people are looking toward Haswell as something that will have, say, the power of Clover Trail, but with additional battery life and better power management capabilities. We'll see. We'll see how that goes.
What do you think of the 8-inch and 7-inch size for Windows?
Well, it's first of all, it's a natural thing to do. I mean, all of the growth that has occurred in the tablet market since about late 2011, I think, has been in the 7-inch range. When you look at the fact that tablets have outsold, notebook computers since mid-2012, that's all been 7-inch tablets. It's not big tablets that are doing it. It's the small ones. So you have to be in that space. It's just suicidal not to be. That's why Apple did, for them, something very rare, followed the market, and they made their own 7-inch-ish, iPad mini, which, obviously is a huge bestseller for them and is responsible for a little bit of the profit issue they had last quarter. Because
but is it the size or is it the price?
It's both.
Okay.
It's both. You get the point of the tablet, which was the point of the netbook originally, right, and now is the point of the mini tablet, is that you have this machine that can do a lot of what you want to do for not just for a lot less money, but in a more convenient form factor. And those things are very powerful because it helps a person not upgrade a fairly expensive computer more frequently. They can keep it sitting there kind of doing, for the more workman-like type things they need to use a PC for. A lot of people had iPads. A lot of the Apple guys will tell you they kind of poo-pooed the 7-inch tablet. And then the iPad mini came out and they're like, holy crap, this thing is awesome.
I was one of those guys. I said, it's kind of stupid. It's a cheaper iPad.
All the time.
And I picked it up. I'm like, wow, this thing is actually really, it's a cool little device.
Now, I actually really like the differentiation between a mini tablet and a PC of any kind, whatever you're talking about, Ultrabook, whatever. because with a tablet, a full tablet like an iPad, you get into a weird situation where this thing could be a replacement. And a lot of people, that's the thing where people buy the keyboards and the stands and they try to make it like a computer. And I think the nice thing about a smaller tablet is that it still lets you do email and web browsing and Facebook in a form factor that's way better than a phone, but super convenient, great battery life. And you don't really feel the need to attach a keyboard to it. Although, by the way, Windows being Windows, there's going to be keyboards,
sure,
there's going to be
mice,
Office.
yeah.
It's going to happen, and we can't avoid that. But I like the companion thing. Last week we talked about road travel, and you said to me, you have a Kindle and you have a Kindle Fire HD. I mean, an appropriate RT or Windows 8 device that was 7 inches or 8 inches big.
It should be enough.
Both of those things. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
But okay, so let me ask you this: Why hasn't this become the replacement?
The Surface.
Yeah.
Because for me, at least, and I'm just speaking personally, it's an awkward size. It's too big for an entertainment device.
Okay.
It's too small for a productivity device. Again, everyone's mileage varies. There are people who get up every day, they they carry their Air-like iPad to work, and they never need anything else. I'd love to be that person. I'd love to have that kind of computing need. I'm not that person. I need a big laptop or an Ultrabook or whatever. But I like to have, a smaller device for the entertainment stuff. I would love there to be a mini version of the Surface.
Okay, so the 7-inch and 8-inch Windows tablets, but are the people that are using that going to be using desktop?
I don't think anyone's going to be using.
You know what I mean?
Exception. The desktop market has fallen off the face of the earth in many ways, right? The small exception being these all-in-one computers, and in this generation, all-in-one computers that have touch. You've seen the screens. You can kind of pull them down, and you can touch on them, and and do all that stuff. There are even some of the big luggable things you can unplug the screen, bring in the play with the kids. I think those are ludicrous, but whatever. I think those are going to be the little bump, that keeps that market going. Those are like the F-350s of the truck world. There's some purpose for them. You occasionally will hear a diesel drive by outside. Some guy who's a contractor owns one or something, but they're not really mainstream.
See, I think eventually you're going to be able to just tell, like, if you get a tablet, you're going to be able to set your settings and say, you know what, I never want to see desktop. I don't want it there. I just want, the new UI, and that's it.
On the flip side, the other thing is, and this has been a dream of mine, and I think for a lot of other people too, and it's not working out today with Surface, but it's close, is this notion that you have this device, it's a tablet, you bring it around with you, maybe it has a little smart cover thing, you can type on it and stuff, but you come home or you go to work and you plug it into some kind of a dock, and your big screen comes on, your big keyboard, all that stuff. This is the dream, but it's still, it's a dream. It's not a reality. And one of the features that we see in Blue, which is that automatic scaling of the desktop UI, is a feature that can help make that happen. The existence of a dock would help make that happen as well.
Sure.
We don't have that.
The official Microsoft dock.
Yeah.
Balmer edition.
Sure. I would buy that in a second.
By the way, that is my copy of Windows 7. I have the Steve Ballmer edition. And for whatever reason, it allows me to install on everything.
Nice.
I've installed it maybe
Never asked for anything?
No, 40 times.
It's literally the version they give to Steve Ballmer.
It's literally his version. I think they probably, I just stole it or something. I don't know. I've installed this thing about 40 times. It's never told me, like, hey, your passwords, you've used this thing a little too many times, Andrew. What are you doing?
Nice.
I like the concept of a 7-inch or 8-inch Windows 8 tablet, but will we see something from Microsoft themselves? Like, have the Surface Mini or whatever they're going to call it.
Yeah, there will be a Surface Mini.
I'm surprised, Paul. I'm really, we're almost a year away from the unveiling of, Windows 7. I guess the preview, the consumer preview.
What are we talking about?
Okay, let me say that again. I don't know what I was saying. It's been a year now, right, since the OEMs have been prepared for Windows 8. We still do not have like this phenomenon, like, oh my God, I cannot believe this device Acer put out.
Yeah.
Look at this device.
Let me introduce you to the PC industry, the slowest moving, stupidest group of people on earth.
Lenovo's another story. I mean, they make great hardware, but since I guess December or January, since that yoga thing, Where are these Windows 8 devices that everybody wants?
Lenovo is the weird exception to everything else that happens in the PC industry, but they also have gone over the top a little bit. If you look at especially their IdeaPad lines, they have way too many computers, computers. And if you would just want to talk about like convertible, portable sort of tablet-y things that switch change into other kinds of computers, they have at least like 5 of them. I mean, it's kind of a ridiculous range of stuff. And I think that is emblematic of the problem because companies just don't know what's going to take off with consumers. And so hopefully a year from now, a year and a half from now, whatever, that kind of calms down. But of course, from all the other PC makers, what you see is not enough.
I mean, I'm at Lenovo's site right now. So they have the Y series, the U series, the Z series, the S, the Yoga, and the N.
It's too much.
And then you go into the business. So you go into TXX series convertible, Edge, W, L, Twist, and then now here's the entry level, the G. So they have, 20 different computers.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And within each of those series, of course, there are multiple models.
Multiple models, multiple stylings, different colors, I'm sure.
I don't get it.
Too much. Dell does the same thing. Dell does the same thing. HP does the same thing. They literally have 50 different models on the shelf for them. You don't know which one is the latest and the greatest.
Yeah.
At least with Apple, kind of talk about the perfections of Apple. I know I'm going to get heat for this, but the one thing, they do many things that's good, but the main thing is they know to tell you this is the latest and the greatest, and this is all you're going to buy from us. I cannot see any OEM being able to do that right now in the PC world because the PC
Microsoft
world
can't do that either.
No, they can't either.
It's why you're going to see things like a 7-inch tablet running Windows 8, not RT, that's going to come bundled with a copy of Office. And it's going to be like what message are you sending people when you do stuff like that? It's crazy, There are people who run Windows RT in the Surface, especially now, who are going to feel very strongly against what I'm about to say. But, Windows RT should never have come with Office. It should never. You made it seem like something else. When the iPad first came out, one of the big digs against it, and one of the complaints I made was that it was just a consumption device. This really bothered Steve Jobs. It's in his autobiography or his biography. And he demanded that Apple create versions of the iWork apps for the iPad so that they could counter these claims that this thing was just for consumption. I would just say, why can't it just be for consumption?
Yeah.
I mean, the iPad is a great device for, email, like all those things I've been talking about, email, web browsing, Facebook, and all the apps and games and stuff. Why does it have to have that stuff? It sort of contorts what it is into something else.
I'll tell you why. Because there is a portion of the PC market, the computer market, that will buy an iPad as their primary computer because they've probably never had a computer before and they want to be able to do word processing.
Oh, okay.
Like grandmas.
Well, at least I could say, for the iPad, with a large screen like that, basically a 10-inch screen, it's a reasonable size to get work done on. You can attach a keyboard to it that is basically full size, and it's fine. I mean, the mini devices, we get into a weird area. I mean, I'm sure you could, and I'm never going to do this, but I'm sure you could take a Kindle Fire HD and attach a Bluetooth keyboard to it and use some stupid Google Android, word processing app very poorly on that thing. But that's not what those devices are for, and that's sort of why I really like the differentiation you get between like a 7-8-inch device and a PC, because to me those are clear cut. The full size tablets really blur things. And
they're getting a little bigger. I mean, they're getting 13-inch. I mean, the Windows market is totally different than anything else. You have a 13-inch and a 14-inch and a 15-inch tablet.
Yeah.
So what are those devices? I get this call every week during the show.
What's up?
I get a call from some weird Long Island number, and I really think it's like a viewer that has my phone number.
You need to answer this phone.
I hung up already, but every week I'll get the call, and it's exactly at 4:35 every week.
That's really odd.
Really weird. Who are you? I'm gonna pick up next week.
You should.
I'll be like, Larry King, you're on the air. I don't know. I just wanted to go into that a little bit. So you're a fan of these mini tablets?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to also I want to get into
It's the
some
right
stuff,
size.
but-
It's just the right size.
I think the 8-inch is a phenomenal size. I think 7 is a little too small.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, there's a range, whatever. I mean, there'll be different versions. I was told that the Microsoft one would be 8 inches.
Yeah. The Xbox, so people could relax. The Xbox will be able to function if you don't have internet. So the internet could kind of relax now.
Yeah, I think we should just wait and see what they say.
Okay.
But
Just saying that.
I talked to Peter Bright about this one. He being the guy that wrote the article, and he's a credible tech journalist and claims a good source on that one. So I guess I would just say that I don't understand where this came from exactly. As in fact, I can go back. I one of the things I did because of this is I started separating my notes for these things, and I think I told you back in January I discovered that I'll just quote exactly what it says. It says Blu-ray included, must be internet connected to use. It's kind of a vague statement, but people have all their awful connotations with that. Like, what if I want to play a single player game? What if I am a Marine stationed in Afghanistan and I can't get online? Whatever. And there's all these kinds of scenarios where they can't be internet connected. I think
Paul,
that it's.
let me give you an example. I mean, is it a smart assumption to say many of the services will not function if you don't have an internet connection, but if you're looking to play a game, there's a possibility, unless the game is requiring always on, that it'll work.
Yep.
Like
it's
EA.
going to be just like the Xbox is today. I think a lot of this stuff, that people have gotten excited about is going to work exactly like it does today. I think that's how it's going to be.
So I want to touch on this a little bit because we discuss cord cutting a lot on the show, and I'm slowly starting to Andrew, stop making sense. Somebody said in the chat room, the internet doesn't like sense.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean it was funny, that video went viral of the show a month and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And people blamed us. We came up with this concept. We are the ones.
All the time. This is the shoot the messenger thing.
How could you guys say always on? How could you even mention it? I don't know. I'm just reading what I read. You know what? The truth is,
I didn't invent it. I just,
Paul, did you or did you not? Honestly,
I was told it.
I don't know about that.
All right. Well,
you are wearing a blue shirt.
By the way, here we are, a month later or weeks later, whatever it is, and to this moment, not a single journalist or blogger has ever asked to speak to me about any of that stuff.
Yeah, considering you were the source.
Yeah. They've all quoted me, which I appreciate. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the people who are on podcasts and other video things have mispronounced my name in various ways. Oh God,
what was that one? Hold on, Therat.
Oh, there's a lot. Every possible. I got. Listen, I grew up with this name. I've heard every variation of it. I don't care. That stuff doesn't bug me, but I'm a little surprised. Well, actually, I just told you about an example of the opposite. So Peter Bright, Ars Technica, wrote an article saying that there will be situations in which you'll be able to use the next Xbox and not be offline. I know Peter Bright. So what did I do? I contacted him.
Yeah.
And I said, "Hey, what's up with this?" And he told me. And I said, "Okay, cool. Done." I mean, how hard is that? Not hard. I got let me ruin the surprise. It's not hard. I did it myself. That's all. Simple.
Well, I credit you, Paul.
Okay. Well, I didn't mean to get off on this topic. I am really uncomfortable being the source of that kind of thing. I know you were. Did I tell you what my son said to me? I'm going to get this wrong. It was a little while ago, but
it was on one of the gaming sites, right?
He came in and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "I was reading some IGN or something." He goes, "Yeah, I saw this rumor about the next Xbox, and it said something about whatever the rumor, one of the things we talked about." And I said, "Yeah," and he goes, "Yeah, and I know it's not true because the guy who told him that was some kind of a noob named Paul Thoreau." And I was like, "All right, thanks."
My favorite version of your name was Paul Thoreau.
Yeah,
that's my favorite one too. Silent T. David, yeah. It's I imagine that to be a French Canadian name.
Yeah, well, Thoreau is a French Canadian name.
Is it? Oh, well, look at that. Go with my geography and last names. I want to talk about the cord cutting stuff. Google is, the rumors are, and I think they're probably going to end up doing this, Google is planning on adding premium subscription services to their larger channels, and pricing is going to start at $1.99. I think this is phenomenal, and it's amazing to me. I was watching CNBC yesterday, and I saw the story come out, and there was some guy on there, and he goes, "This is going to be devastating to YouTube. Nobody's going to pay for content. This is going to ruin the company. This is the worst decision they could ever make." And I'm sitting there listening to this guy, and like 3 other people started writing like, started saying like, "Oh yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think this is an awful direction for them. Their consumer base, their user base is used to free content, and now they're going to start charging you." And I'm thinking, they're not going to charge you to watch like a cat vomiting. They're going to charge you for premium content.
Right.
And they're signing all these deals with these companies. It baffled me that the media was perceiving it as a negative.
So I actually think this is great. But there's something missing. I'd say there's 2 things missing from the YouTube deal. And then one thing that's missing from some of these other similar, or what will soon be similar services like Netflix or Hulu Plus or whatever. YouTube has pretty good distribution on devices like Roku, Apple TV, Xbox 360, and so forth. But it needs better apps, better, I don't know what you call it, let's call them apps.
Yeah.
The Windows Phone 8 app, for example, was just updated by Microsoft, of all people, today for YouTube, and is actually very good. But, we need an experience on the Apple TV, the Roku, the whatever device that is similar to what you get with Netflix. I mean, that'd be the first one. Like, I need that kind of thing. Like, I don't like going to YouTube and seeing crap, which is what you actually do see.
Well, this is what's happened with YouTube. I think YouTube, for a while, YouTube had their main page, and you could actually find content. You could find up-and-coming content. You could find whoever they were featuring for the time. And I think that was great. It was flawed, but I think it was much better than what they're doing now, which their main page, the YouTube page, is totally bizarre to me. It's totally empty.
Oh, no, it's terrible.
If you don't subscribe to stuff, there's no content discovery.
Well, one of the things I noticed on the Windows Phone app, and again, this is maybe not a good example because Microsoft made it, but it's a beautiful looking app. It's a very Windows Phone looking app. You can sign in with your Google account. You can get access to all the things you subscribe to. I do subscribe to a number of channels on YouTube. Those channels are not right there front and center in the UI. There's no way to go into it and say, I want to see my channels when I log into this app.
Yeah.
You have to go into that and go find it, which I don't like. But you know what else is missing? And this is something I think needs to be rectified, and it will answer the primary complaint with cloud computing in general, just apply to these services. This is something that Netflix needs to figure out, Hulu Plus needs to figure out, and now I think YouTube needs to figure out, and that's offline use. That there needs to be some notion of, and it obviously can't be super broad, but maybe at any given time I could have 2 Netflix shows downloaded for offline use, so I could watch them on a plane, or something similar to that. And YouTube needs to do that as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think the whole thing, but YouTube is fascinating. I can never not see them doing any kind of offline use because they're so against those content download tools. Like they blocked them all in Chrome, where you can't download the videos off of YouTube.
Right.
Which is interesting. But here's my gripe with YouTube. If they start having, like their YouTubers, like the main YouTube guys, starting to put everything as paid content, $1.99 a month to subscribe, I think it'll break the feel of YouTube. I think that's a bad thing. But if you're a television network, if you're a TV show, if you're, you shot a pilot and this is how you're doing it, I think there's going to be big online content providers that are going to have premium content on YouTube. And I think that's a positive thing. I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. If Fox has a YouTube channel and for $1.99 a month, I have access to every Fox television show, I'm really happy with that.
Yeah.
But if I want to watch,
that's the point, right? I assume that is the point.
But if you're someone like iJustine, I cannot see people paying a premium. Maybe I'm totally disconnected from the demo, but I cannot see people paying to watch a 5-minute, video of hers.
Right.
I don't know how that would work.
It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Instead, I could picture a subscription fee where there are certain videos you can only watch if you have that subscription, right? I mean, rather than paying to watch a video, you're paying a subscription. I mean, I could see.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good thing, but if it has to be done right. The other thing is, I really think YouTube needs to redo the main page. I have a serious problem with it. Makes me so upset when I see it.
Well, I mean, that goes to what I was saying earlier. I mean, it needs to become an entertainment hub. Right now, it's a mess. I mean, it's just a mess.
The suggested videos are really funny on the side too, because sometimes they get it right.
They're so crazy.
Like they're all I watched a Leonard Nimoy commercial for Audi. Have you seen it?
Yeah,
I tweeted it.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Phenomenal. The part that he's singing about Bilbo Baggins. I mean, it was in really well.
Brilliant. Yep.
So I had that up, and then there was a Leonard Nimoy interview with the LA Times, which I watched. It was like a 14-minute interview. It was a good interview. And then next to it was like William Shatner, 1979, singing Rocket Man, which was great. Yep. And then it randomly
makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay. And then like I'm looking at, Leonard Nimoy, whatever. And then at the bottom was woman falls downstairs. Hilarious.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what happened here?
Yep.
Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
yeah. That's YouTube. Welcome to YouTube.
Welcome to YouTube. All right, guys. We need to take a little spot here and talk about Carbonite online backup. I got I always talk about personal stories of mine with Carbonite and a lot of the advertisers. I talk about the emails that we get, and someone in our chat right now, Radar Gaming. I was on the phone with him yesterday. He does web work. I'm sure if you Google his name, you'll find it. But he was having some issues with his gaming computer. We were all going to play a game online, and he messaged me. He's like, you know what? I can't do this. I need to get Carbonite. What's your promo code? How much is it a month? I need to do this before I lose everything. He got Carbonite and started backing it up. I don't know if it's completed, but it just shows you. I mean, we wait till the very end when there's a, oh my God, what am I going to do scenario to do this. I think you shouldn't wait till the end. You should do it now. It's dirt cheap, $50 a year. You get Carbonite. It backs everything up on the cloud. And the way that they do it is that they're not sucking up all your bandwidth, so you can still do stuff if you're bandwidthly challenged, which I know many people are. $59 a year. You get Carbonite. Backs everything up for you. And here's the great part. If you use offer code WhatTheTech, you'll get 2 bonus months with the purchase. So getting 14 months for the price of 12. You can't beat that. I have Carbonite on my wife's computer. I have Carbonite. You know what? I don't have Carbonite on my computer, Paul. I don't have it on mine. I actually should get it. I have it on my wife's. I have it on my mother-in-law's. I have it on my father's computer now. So I'm putting it on every possible computer that I have, and I'm recommending it to everybody because I am the one that always has to deal with the cleanup. After a massive failure of sorts, I have to be the one that's trying to recover the hard, whatever portion of the hard drive went bad. I have to run spin right for about 14 hours straight trying to recover whatever it was. I don't want to do that anymore. $59 a year, works on Mac or PC, and you can actually access the content also with an iPad. So that's also great. Carbonite.com, use offer code WhatTheTech and get 2 bonus months with purchase. I want to thank Carbonite for supporting What the Tech. Now, Paul, I want to go into some stuff here because I have a big list. I guess we're running short on time. So should we talk about Google Glasses or should we go into our what happened? What do you think?
What do we got? We can push off Google Glasses. Okay. I think that's going to be a rich area of discussion.
Yeah. You know what? We'll save that for next week because I had a lot to talk about, and I kind of realized something over, I guess it was when I was drunk, which was interesting. I want to talk about Palm. I want to talk about what happened. This is a new segment to the show. Last time in this, we discuss a certain company, and we say, what happened? What happened to this company? Why did they end up going in the direction that they did? And this week, I want to discuss Palm. For people who
Poor
don't...
Palm.
What?
Poor Palm.
You know what? I was a big Trio fan, man. For years, I loved the Trio. I had a Palm Pilot.
Telling the Palm story is going to be very difficult.
You know when was the beginning of the end for them? When they got Windows Mobile.
Well, I I would say that is more is not a symptom of the problem, but rather a sort of a side effect of the problem. I mean,
Okay, yeah. But when I saw them put that on,
well, first, remember, there's a convoluted history of Palm. You got to remember that some of the original people left and formed Handspring, right? They went off and made terrifically excellent devices for a while, and then I think actually came back to the company. And then they had their sort of John Rubinstein phase where they tried to emulate Apple and do WebOS and all that stuff. But I think the Windows thing that you're talking about was they knew that they had a gap to fill between the previous generation and the next gen, and they needed to sell something. And for whatever it's worth, that phone that they made, the Treo 900, I think was the name of it, was the single best Windows mobile phone ever made. So, you know, it is too bad. I feel bad about those guys.
I had a Trio 900. I had all of them.
Yeah, I still do, actually.
So what do you think the problem was? Because if you look at the history of Palm, they had severe company issues for years.
Yeah.
For years. I mean, from the beginning, I mean, they got bought a couple times. They
were part of 3Com, right?
Yeah.
One of those companies. Sure. I mean, you know, there probably have been business books written about this type of thing where you're the big innovator, you come in and create a market, and then the market moves on and you can't make that next step, you know. And so they were responsible for creating it's not modern anymore, but at the time was the modern PDA market. And then, you know, Apple competed in that little bit with Newton. Microsoft obviously had Windows Mobile. Or actually, I should say Pocket PC before Windows Mobile. And the thing that they didn't make, well, that's not fair to say. I was going to say the jump that they didn't make properly, perhaps, was the smartphone, although they actually did a pretty good job of that. But I think that they were just dominant for that one period. I think they were the PDA company. And so smartphone was the piece where those things were really taking off and the competition just got bigger. It was just a bigger market. And they just couldn't keep up. I mean, there are actually examples of this. I mean, Apple is a company that really milked what we now think of as the classic Mac OS for many years longer than maybe it should have been in the market, but they had nowhere else to go. And Palm did the same thing with Palm OS.
But I mean, the 700, the Trio 700, I think it was 7 and 750. At the time that they came out, they were still selling. So you're looking at about 2007, 2008. Right? When did the iPhone come out? 2007?
2007.
Okay. Yeah. So I remember I bought my I bought my Trio around that time. It was like my third Trio. And if you compared the two phones with the iPhone, even with the iPhone being, you know, kind of half-assed when it came out, it was night and day. I mean, to me, that was their main thing that caused them to kind of fall apart is they could not keep up.
But even before the iPad, you know, one of the things Microsoft claims kind of retroactively is that, you know, people make fun of Windows Mobile, but Windows Mobile was this thing from the early 90s that did pretty well, and they beat Palm in their estimation. You know, one thing that might be worth doing is using like the Wayback Machine and looking at what the Palm website looked like in 2007 or something, just to see what they had on offer. I'd love to see it. I mean, I'm trying to bring it up. But
I mean, and to be honest, they didn't do anything with the operating system at all for years. I mean, the Palm.
Remember they split it off. It was Palm OS was separate for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Then it all came back in. I think Handspring was basically merged back into Palm at one point. The Palm OS kind of came back. I mean, at some point, it all kind of came back together. But yeah, I mean, in 2000, I'm trying to find a good picture of this, but in 2008, this can't be right. They still have, this can't.
Well, 2008, the Palm Trio 800 had a 320 by 320 display. It was running Windows 6.1.
I'm looking.
Windows Mobile 6.1 had a 2-megapixel camera, 256 memory on hand. Well, you could have up to 8 gigs of memory on there. But let me see here. 2007, the Centrino. What is it? Centro? Yeah, that was a little one that they put out.
Yeah, the low end one. Yeah.
So the 755 came out 2007. That's the one I had.
Sure.
320 by 320 display, removable battery, 1.3 megapixel camera. That speaks volumes that they couldn't compete. They just did not adapt quickly. Right. So let me ask you this, Paul. If they were still in the market today, let's say they hung on with WebOS.
By the way, we've talked about this. WebOS was beautiful.
Very good. Yeah, it was stunning.
I remember being so disappointed. I was at an industry event, probably CES, and they have these press events attached to CES and used to for Comdex as well, like showstoppers and so forth. And they were there, and I finally got my hands on one of these things, the first WebOS phone, whatever that was called. What was it called? Palm.
The Palm Pre.
Pre, thank you. So, and sure enough, it was just as beautiful as it seemed like it would be. And it was so freaking slow. It was so awfully slow. And I felt really bad because I knew it was one of those things that they would fix. It needed more RAM, I think, was the issue at the time.
Yeah. I think it was like the Pre Plus, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they doubled the RAM or something. But, yeah, it was just so close. But, that company, that version of Palm, was just running out of money. They blew every cent they had just launching that one product. And they had nothing left over to develop additional products in the line, accessories, to promote it, with TV ads. It went nowhere. And I think I'm forgetting this, but I want to say they were only on T-Mobile or something, which was kind of a second-rate carrier at the time. And, it was just one of those things. I mean, it's too bad because that system today, I think would stand up very nicely against everything we're looking at.
And HP released one, the Palm Pre 3. HP had their own version.
Yeah.
Here's my issue with this.
Short-lived.
Yeah, it was out for like a week. If I've been critical of BlackBerry, and you've been critical of that they took so long to adapt and they took so long to kind of evolve their operating system. But you know what? It might have been a blessing in disguise for them. And I'll tell you why. Right. At the time that this phone came out, the Palm Pre came out, everything was being compared to the iPhone, and everything was being called an iPhone killer. Remember that? Everything was an iPhone killer. Is this the iPhone killer? Every phone that came out. And no, nothing was an iPhone killer because nothing was at the level of the iPhone at the time.
Yeah.
Now, it's a totally different market that nobody uses that term iPhone killer anymore. So you could release a product on the market, and it cannot be at the level of the iPhone, but you still have a fighting chance. Because I think that the perception is totally different now because the market is saturated with Android. Okay,
well, I could tell you why, though. I mean, back then we were focused on phones. The iPhone was a phone. The Palm Pre was a phone. It wasn't the Motorola Droid X that killed the iPhone or whatever. Nothing has killed the iPhone, but the iPhone killer, such as it is not a phone. It's Android. It's a platform. It's an ecosystem. It's the PC type ecosystem done again, but with a mobile device. And they haven't killed it, but they have certainly superseded it, or surpassed it, I guess.
I mean, but you could pick so many different phones now. I mean, that didn't exist at the time. So
that's my point. In other words,
you could have replaced.
Then it was just a phone. Like that was what had to do it. Was a phone.
Oh, yeah.
That just wasn't going to happen.
Absolutely. And I think if BlackBerry had, kind of said, okay, here it is, here's a new version of BlackBerry, and it could have been what it is today.
But they just,
it would have failed.
BlackBerry did things like the Storm. Here's like a touch thing that has like haptic feedback, and here's another one with a keyboard, and here's a slightly different one with a keyboard, and here's a slightly different one with, they were just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping that something stuck. There was no real strategy going on there.
No. I find the Palm story really sad because the biggest disappointment was WebOS and the lack of development from with HP and WebOS, and now it's
WebOS is the closest thing I've ever seen to the Amiga ever. It's almost perfect, the comparison.
It was beautiful.
It really was so much better than everything else, and it was beautiful to look at. And no one knew it existed. No one cared. No one even gave it a shot, and it just kind of disappeared. And it's too bad.
I'm trying to see because I know that there was a new version released recently.
Well, now it's just in the other realms, WebOS is as dead as Amiga OS. It just doesn't matter. And by the way, for whatever it's worth, I mean, we look at this thing now, the 2009 version of WebOS that Wikipedia has on their WebOS
I'm looking
page.
at that. Yeah.
Looks like iOS. It looks like you don't get from that image that there's swipes going on that you can do to get other screens to come up and so forth. But you still see this kind of grid of icons, and it's like, it's so old fashioned. I mean,
it's sad.
But again, it was made years ago.
I mean, maybe I just had a soft spot for Palm because I used it for so many years, but they were one of the innovators.
I've owned dozens of Palm devices and competing devices made by other companies, not just Handspring, but Sony made fantastic Palm OS devices. I bet I've owned close to 20 of them.
Black and white ones, and do you remember the internet adapter you used to put on that thing?
On what?
It was like a modem you attached to it.
No, by the time that stuff came out, I had moved on to the Windows stuff and the Windows Mobile stuff, and we had like Compaq had an iPac device that was incredible.
I had the Dell Pocket PC.
Yeah. Okay.
I
and they had
the
like
name of
sheets,
it.
and you could add. They had expansion of crazy kinds, like including the ability to put a PC. It was a PC card, was what it was called, but a PC card modem into like a. I used to call it a sled, like a sleeve thing, and then you could expand.
What was the Dell one? The Axum.
Axum, yeah.
Was that it?
Yeah, it was a line of them, yeah. So they were the guys, like they had the high-end one, whatever that was called, had like a really high-res display for the time, meaning it was probably like 640 by 480 or something.
Yeah,
but,
320 by 320.
Yeah, no, it was high-res. It was actually high-res.
So I had one of the first ones. So I want to say it came out in 2002, right?
The Dell?
The Dell, yeah.
I don't remember.
God, I'm trying to remember now. I had that thing. It was awful.
I had the high end one. I do remember.
It was really bad. I mean, it wasn't great at all.
The high end one was nice.
No, I probably didn't have that. You know what? 240 by 320 display.
Which one?
The X5 series. So the first one. Which
no. This was the one I had definitely had a high res display.
Let me see here. You might have had.
Yeah, they did have a 3.7 VGA display, so VGA must be 640 by 480. I'm positive it was. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure it was 640 by 480.
Yeah, the later ones were a little bit better, but man, how this market kind of changed in like 3 years. Well,
phones took off.
Think about that.
These were so.
I mean, Windows Mobile 5 came out when? 2004.
2005.
2005, okay. So from 2005 to 2008, the entire marketplace just totally went upside down.
Yeah.
For mobile computing. I mean, you got to remember, this was still the time where people were saying, like, remember Sony was putting that, like, 7-inch, little computer out with Windows XP on there for $1,500. Yeah. And people were like, wow, this is really cool. I don't know, man, how it changed.
Yeah. Well, the iPhone changed the smartphone world. There's no doubt about it. I mean, first phones happened. I mean, that's, and Apple wasn't part of that originally, but, then phones were, went into the stratosphere with the iPhone. So, the PDA. I used to have crazy PDAs. I've tried every PDA on earth. I had this thing called a Rex. It was credit card sized. All you could really do with the device itself was look at it and see what was going on. You couldn't enter stuff into it.
Wait a minute. Was it like Rex 1000 or Rex 2000? It had some number behind it, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I remember that. Hold on, let me see. Was it? Yeah, Rex
Not
6000.
Rex the language.
Rex 6000, the personal digital assistant.
Let's see if I can find this thing.
Yeah, that's.
I thought that was cool because I never, when I was out in the world, I never wanted to do anything with it other than see what was going on. But that was also one of the big changes. And even the first iPhone didn't change this completely. But over time, what changed was these things didn't have to be companions for a PC. I mean, Pocket PCs, Palms, Windows Mobile, originally, a big part of the experience was plugging it into a computer and syncing stuff to it. And the iPhone, too.
Yeah.
I actually think it's as big of a deal as the iPhone was when it first came out. It's a bigger deal in many ways that these things can now be used PC free. It's the reason why someone can use an iPad and not need a computer necessarily,
No, a lot of people are enjoying it. By the way, you could buy a
Dell
Rex.
had no part of that at all. I mean, I'm sorry, Palm wasn't around to see that happen.
Yeah. You can buy a Rex right now for $34.99 on Amazon. Somebody's selling it. You should buy one, Paul.
I think that ship is kind of.
All right, let's wrap it up. Go to our website, gfqnetwork.com. Of course, if you miss any portion of the show, you can catch it archived there. We're also on iTunes. We're on Windows Phone. We're everywhere podcasts are available. And remember, guys, please subscribe to the show, audio, video, or both, whichever one you want to do. It helps out big time. Also, you can catch Paul every Thursday on the Twit Network for Windows Weekly. Mary Jo Foley and I are going to have drinks next week.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to be in Redmond next week.
I'm sorry. We're going to go to that restaurant that I was at over the weekend, and it was like, where did you find that beer? It was good beer. Somebody wants me to ask you about Mohoro.
Yeah. I don't know too much about it. I mean, Mary Jo Foley wrote a story about it, and she passed some stuff to me, and I said, this is Azure-hosted VDI, and I don't want to get off on a crazy side enterprise topic, but it is basically a way to stream Windows desktops over the internet to thin clients, like, by the way, a Chromebook or whatever, you know. It's probably a year or two away, but it would be kind of an interesting expansion of both Windows and Azure, you know, so we'll see what happens. But I wrote a story about it this week.
All right. Somebody just wanted me to ask you about it. WinSupersite.com.
I don't know anything additional. Yeah. I talked to her on the side about it. She, you know, she obviously Mary Jo has really good sources. So
I'll ask her all about it next week.
Yeah, do that.
Somebody said MJ will drink you under the table.
Ask her about Hadoop. She'll want to talk about that.
Let's talk about Hadoop, MJ. Forget about the beer.
Let's drink and talk about it.
Yeah. That is the discussion I don't want to have. The enterprise stuff is like baffling to me. WinSupersite.com for all things Paul Thurrott. Also follow him on Twitter at Thurrott. You can follow me at Andrew Zarian. And that's it, guys. So we'll see you all next week on What the Tuck. Good night, everybody.